All right, really enjoyable episode here today with Holly Lawrence, 2016 World Champion. We dove into a lot of topics about how she got into the sport of triathlon, building all the way up to that big result, winning a world title, and then subsequently having many winning seasons. We also talked a little bit more about having to take a step back through hardships and struggles and the evolving game of professional triathlon right now. It wasn't necessarily as easy as it was 10 years ago, and how she's continuing to pivot and evolve and be a competitive athlete. Of course, we don't skip over a new big change in her life, welcoming a baby girl here in a few short weeks. So enjoy this conversation with Holly Lawrence. All right, welcome to another episode of the Endurance Matters podcast. I'm your host, Justin Metzler, and today I've got a friend of mine in the studio, 2016 Ironman World Champion. I counted online 70.3 wins.
I think so.
Might need to be corrected on that one. One of Boulder's newest residents and mom-to-be, Holly Lawrence. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is a very legit setup.
I'm glad you feel that way because we tried to make it as legit as possible. All right, well, I start off all of my episodes with a hard-hitting icebreaker question.
Okay.
So you ready for it?
Yeah.
What emoji best describes how you're feeling today?
Oh, I don't know. The one with its tongue out. I feel like, yeah, I'm always kind of ready for anything and happy-go-lucky.
That's a very good answer. I was saying to Jeannie, she asked me what mine was last night, and it was like kind of the one with the like grumbling mouth emoji, like the one with the squiggling lines. But yeah, no, now I got a big smile on my face, so maybe the one with the sunglasses or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely want to dive into like your background. We've gotten to know each other a little bit just via training together here in Boulder and swimming and stuff, and obviously your pedigree and reputation precedes you here, so excited to dive in. But want to go back and like learn a little bit more about how you got into triathlon, how you started. So maybe just give me the short version of how you got into triathlon and why it was something that you enjoyed and why did it stick for you?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, it's such a long time ago. I was even, saying that I won world champs in 2016. God, it seems like a lifetime ago. But yeah, my entry into triathlon really was from a really average swimmer. Did a bit of cross-country running at school. My parents wanted me to find a bit more success than I was having in, swimming, which I just kind of hit the plateau. My brother was, a hotshot favorite to make the, Olympics, and he was definitely the talented one. I was just a hard worker, but I would call myself relatively untalented. And yeah, just kind of fell into triathlon. I could be average at 3 sports and really loved it. It got away from the goldfish bowl of swimming, which I really didn't like. Just a lot of pressure, a lot of eyes on me. I felt like in triathlon, I could just go away and no one would see me for a little bit. And yeah, just kind of climbed the ranks and with no expectations. I started in ITU, ended up doing 70.3. And then, yeah, moved to America and just kind of, my career kind of took off from there.
What was it like? You mentioned your brothers because you're a triplet, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So was that like a competitive thing growing up of trying to like get one over on the siblings, or how was that?
Yeah, I mean, I think just like growing up together, just the 3 of you, you're just naturally competitive with everything. Like, the first one to take your stabilizers off your bikes, the first one to, I'm competing with my sister and my brother. I never saw, being a female or a male thing, a differentiator. It was just kind of like we're all in it together and all trying to like compete, whether it's for attention from your parents, for anything. So yeah, I think that's always kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, that's a good quality to like have ingrained in you. If you're ultimately going to become a professional athlete, to have that competitive edge is probably a good thing to get drilled into you right from the start. So you mentioned getting into ITU. Talk to me a little bit about that experience and maybe what led you to switch over to long course.
Yeah. So luckily in the UK, they have a really good domestic series of, it was called the British Triathlon Super Series at the time, where, there's money. It's kind of fostering youth elite before you kind of get onto the, World Series and everything. And so I did that, a bit of French Grand Prix when I was in university. And it was just fun. I did actually go to Commonwealth Games in 2014 in Glasgow. I was in Wales for however long, so it was for Wales. But it was just so political. I felt like my name never fit. I didn't come from the system. Even as a 15, 16-year-old, I was told I was too old. I was always kind of like, just never accepted, always jumping through loops, and the kind of finishing, what really kind of ended it for me was that British Triathlon at the time wanted me almost to be more of a domestique, even though I wasn't paid to be that, or I wasn't, I was trying to get funding or whatever. And I was in races being told to stop and wait for people, even though I was there in my own right. So I was just very over it by the end, and saw 70. I did try a 70.3, and I was just like, oh, this is great. It's my own race. I can, it just seemed so much less stressful. I even found the swim stressful in ITU. It was everything was stressful. So it was just great when I went into long course, and then, had an opportunity to move to America, and it was a whole new thing.
Yeah. So what was that opportunity in America to come over here?
Yeah, so I started working with Matt Dixon at Purple Patch.
Sure.
And I really had nothing at the time. He really took a leap of faith with me, and I've never really, we don't really connect now, but, I really am grateful for him for, helping me move out here. And it was just kind of a time in my life that, it was just a big opportunity to come and be coached by someone who was prolific at the time, had a big, group of athletes. And it was more, I just wanted to be, in an athlete environment. And it was like a full-time training camp, which I just loved.
Yeah. Were you burned out on being in the UK at that point, and America was kind of this big shiny object? Or what was that the only opportunity really on the table for you to just come over to the US? Did you have more options and you were trying to weigh them? Or was it a matter of hey, I'm going to LA and here I go?
Yeah. I had no...
Or San Francisco, I guess.
Yeah, it was San Francisco at the time. Yeah, I had nothing really. I did a bit of French Grand Prix. I did a bit of this and that, and kind of dabbled. So it was just an opportunity, and I just grasped it with two hands. And it was just, those things that you just look back, you're like, wow, that was just a very lucky time that it just all kind of pieced together, and it was a big stepping stone.
Yeah. How did Matt reach out to you? How did he find you?
So a weird circumstance. It was an ex-boyfriend that I was with from Swansea at the time, and we both studied together with sports science, and he did a PhD, and he connected with Matt somehow. I can't even remember how. And so Matt wanted to work with me because he'd kind of heard of me and seen, and I was like, well, I can't pay a coach, Matt connected him with Red Bull, and he got a job with Red Bull at the time. So it was this just kind of big opportunity. And I went to San Francisco and got kind of put up with a homestay that kind of really helped me out and let me live in San Francisco for a long period of time too. So it was crazy time.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Opportunities like that don't often come along, but when you get them, you kind of have to seize them with both hands and take advantage of the opportunity. What were the first couple maybe months or years like being in America? Maybe touch on some of those races that you were getting into at the time, because it sounds like it was pretty make or break.
Yeah, I mean, I really didn't have anything to my name. It was I've got a couple of $1,000s in my bank account. But it was kind of freeing. It was if this all fails, then I can just go back home and live with mom and dad and figure it out. And I was racing race to race for prize money, and was every position is that girl has a couple of $1,000s on the back,
Totally, 100%.
And it was a fun way to race because I had nothing holding me back, but everything to gain. But I felt no pressure. I was so naive also of where it could go. I didn't think triathlon could be a career. So it was just a great time. And it was just, so then 2015, I had some up and down results. I remember my first race, I think, was Oceanside, and my tri-suit didn't come. So I raced in a black tri-suit, which was my first race in America. And everyone was like, who is that? I broke the bike course record in Oceanside. And I think I fell to third place or fourth place in the end of the race, but kind of just had some like higgledy-pickledy results in 2015. Had a bit of fatigue because I was like, I would train too hard. It was like that permanent training camp, but that can be pretty, reckless sometimes too. And then really kind of found my feet in 2016, which I actually left Matt at that point, and moved to LA. And then, the rest is history.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely want to talk more about LA because I think when you look at the triathlon scene, you're not seeing a lot of professionals training in LA. Yeah. What was the draw there? I guess in terms of, the first question is what was the draw to go to LA? And then ultimately, what was the infrastructure that allowed you to have such great success pretty immediately after you moved there?
Well, so again, I was with that boyfriend. So he was in LA and I moved to LA, but it was also, Matt, he was very tight with a swim coach that was there, Jerry Rodriguez, of Tower 26. So I was training with them, and there was just, and there used to be a big triathlon culture in LA, but that was like years before I moved there. And it was just a great place to train. It was like, the dream from coming from the UK with miserable weather, of just beautiful weather year round, beautiful climbs, just, fun place to train. And
Did you like the lifestyle there? How was it outside of training?
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, that's where I met Sean with Tower 26. And I had a bunch of friends like through swimming and, people I would train with. So it was just like a very cool lifestyle training, but then like going to the beach,
Sure.
Great restaurants. Not that I was going out to eat at restaurants, but like, there's just like so much around, and it's a cool vibe. It's just, and it changed a lot by the time I did end up leaving. So like, it is funny to like think about it when it's like the fresh eyes of when I first moved there.
Sure. And because you were there for quite some time through a lot of great results, you called that home. When does Boulder start coming into your head?
Yeah, so that was really recently. I mean, we moved nearly 2 years ago now, which time has flown by. I can't believe it. But I was one of the triathletes that wore it as a badge of honor that I was the only triathlete that had never been to Boulder, because everyone described Boulder to me as Boulder is the bubble. You hear it, the bubble, all the time.
Totally, yeah.
And to me, it was like, you're going to run into every triathlete at Whole Foods. You're going to be racing people out on the roads. You're just going to like pass your competitor, and then it's going to be stressful. I'm like, that sounds terrible. Like, I'm just out training with my friends in LA. Like, that just doesn't sound for me. And obviously the winters, I'm like, it snows. Like, that sounds terrible. And then we have some really good friends here in Boulder who are runners. So that was also why we came to visit, or just to stay with them. But that was before the 70.3 in Boulder. And the minute we got here, I was like, this is not what I thought it would be. Like, everything I thought it would be, it was like way more chill. And also it was coming at a point where Santa Monica wasn't the Santa Monica I remembered. Like, post-COVID, everyone you could feel everyone's stress. Like, obviously the cost of living is high, everything changed. Like, I was getting yelled at 3, 4, 5 times a ride. My middle finger would come up within like seconds. I was becoming so reactive. And I came out here and I was like riding by cows and horses, and I just felt calm. I'm like, my middle finger's not coming out, like,
yeah, for sure.
And, I'd stumbled into like all the triathletes at the pool when I wanted to.
For sure.
And, I could swim with, you guys, all the people I knew. And it wasn't like anyone had these like big egos that it was stressful or anything that I was told it would be. So I was like, I don't know if I've been fed this lie that's like stopping people coming to Boulder, but like, it was just like a real breath of fresh air at the time that I really needed it. And so we kind of just delayed our stay and then rented Corey McGee's place, who's a runner, for a couple more weeks. And then I kind of turned to Sean and said, I really don't want to go home. Like, this feels like home now. So we just packed up our apartment and moved out here.
It is funny how like Boulder catches you like that. I sort of came here in a similar situation where I just like drove out here. I was living out of my car and I just drove here. My friend invited me to come sleep on his couch and I was just like, I can't leave.
Right?
It's just too cool. And I feel like here there's so many layers that you can like unpack when it comes to training or socially or whatever. I feel like there's something for every personality. So it definitely catches your imagination. Like I want to talk a little bit about the volume of pros here. You mentioned that running into them at the pool, like inherently, if you are going to rock up to, one of the local squads or you're going to go to the track at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday, like you're going to see a lot of pros. Does that play into your day-to-day? Do you find yourself comparing yourself to maybe a competitor in the pool or if someone's there on the track? Like, does that bother you at all or does it uplift you and give you energy and motivation?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, not. Like I think it comes from my background as a triplet. Like I love training with people. Like to me, training time is social time. Like I don't really do much in the evenings. I don't go out anywhere. Even after this, I'm hanging out with my friend. So we're going for a swim, it's like, that's what we do together. So I think it's like, it's more dependent on the other people for me. And I've been in training groups where, there's cattiness, there's, people get upset, there's egos involved. And I feel like it's less from my side. It's the other people that can't. And it's just kind of dependent on the person if it's good for them or not. And like, that's why I would more so gravitate to training with guys, but I love training with women as long as, there is that just supportive relationship where, and I'm so up and down, I could be so up and down in training that like, I'm never disheartened if I get dropped one day. I'll be like, oh, it's all you. And I'm always like, yeah, good on them. I'm never going to wish someone else down. I just think, how can I be better? And like, I just think, it's just down to the person. So, and luckily we've only really been in, groups since we've been here of people that are really embrace that.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm exactly the same. Like you've trained with me enough, I think at the pool to know that I just love being around, because I live and breathe triathlon. Like for me to be around other pro triathletes is like, it's like what I want to do. So it's cool to hear that you have that mindset, because I think some people can maybe take those sessions a little bit too serious. And if you can just rock up and try your best, that's the key, and get the most out of yourself.
Yeah. Because everyone's got different strengths. And also we're all on different programs. We're all on different coaches. We're all on different, schedules, seasons, disciplines. Yeah. Some people are doing Ironman, some people are doing short course. So I think if you get hung up on comparing yourself, it's just not a good way to be. So I don't know.
Yeah. Do you feel differently maybe going into a race where okay, you go to a swim with Julie and you're there with Chelsea and Taylor and you guys are all preparing for a PTO event and it's not your day and those girls are flying. Does it change in maybe something like that if you're 2 weeks out from a race, or can you still contextualize and be like, it just wasn't my day, it's all good?
Yeah, I mean, I just take everything as information and I'm not emotional about it. I'm like, yeah, Taylor's killing me in the pool. I'm going to try and get on her feet. I'm not going to try and race her,
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know, you can, yeah, that's good.
That's a good answer. I think that's the right perspective and the perspective that you need to have to be training with people consistently. I mean,
it's almost like a privilege to get to
for sure. Yeah.
See it. But then, I race against, I have two really good friends in triathlon, Jackie Herring and Paula Finley, and I love them to bits. But I want to beat their asses on race day. Totally. And we can all be that way.
Yeah.
And then hug it out after the race. But in the race, I'd be like, I want to beat them. So I think I just can switch that on and off.
Yeah, it's key.
And it not being in a aggressive or negative way.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit more about your mindset. Like I'm trying to get in there a little bit with the training talk, but I want to talk a little bit more about sort of the time period between 2016 and 2019. So you had just come over to America. I think you had settled in LA. You started having some success on the race course. That success included a 2017 season where you won every single race, aside from one where you pulled out.
Yeah, a big one.
A big one. Yeah, we could talk about that if you'd like. And then 2019, where you were either first or second at all of your races and second at 70.3 Worlds.
Yeah.
That was probably one of your better seasons
that
you had to reflect on. So over the course of that time, if you look up your results, it's just like on the PTO website, gold, silver, gold, silver, gold, silver, which is like a really impressive stretch. Heading into the pandemic in 2020, you've got to be thinking to yourself, hey, I'm on track towards another world title here, or I'm on track to another big result. How was that time period where you're really headed on a great trajectory and then everything sort of comes to a halt?
So I think I got COVID before COVID was COVID, which was in like December on my way back from Bahrain. And honestly, when COVID actually happened, I was like, thank God, because I'm effed. I cannot, like, my body is just failing me. I had a back injury after coughing. Like, I ended up having an epidural. I couldn't tumble turn. Like,
Wow.
It was bad. Like, had pneumonia for weeks. Like, so yeah, no, obviously coming off of 2019, I'm like, yeah, this is just going to keep going. But no, I was like, I really had the handbrake pulled on me early 2020. So it was a relief when the whole world shut down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I kind of really struggled for a little bit with my health. And I think it was kind of related to that. Like, I had a lot of like complications and then, yeah, kind of really struggled to find my feet. And I think it was in a time where some people really benefited from that break of training and they just like train the house down, whereas I was like struggling with my health. So yeah, that was a difficult period. But then I've even from 2016 to 2019, it wasn't smooth sailing.
Sure.
Like you said, yeah, I won everything into 2017, but then I pulled myself off the race course and sat off the tarmac at the World Champs. And I'm like, do you have a car? Because I'm done.
You were just cooked mentally, or what was the issue there?
Yeah, so I was just like, it was the first year after winning everything in 2016, won World Champs, signed a bunch of sponsors, and then just crumbled under the pressure.
Yeah.
I felt like I had I went from having nothing to prove, in the Ironman interview, I did a cartwheel because I said I didn't want to do a moody walk. And like, even though like, pitched me as one of the top 5 favorites, I'm like, look, I just want to swim, bike and run as fast as I can. Like, I wasn't taking it seriously, but it was so freeing. It was like a great way to race instead of then fast forward a year when like really now people are taking me seriously. It should be an even better time in my life.
Yeah.
But I just really struggled with the pressure that I put on myself with all of these people that then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I need to step it up even more. In my first race, I think I beat everyone by like 10 minutes. Why I didn't just shut it down and be like, think of the long game.
Sure.
I was everything, overcooking it in training, too scared to take a recovery week when I was prescribed it, and then of course, mid-season, I get a little injury because you're just, running the limits. And then fast forwarded to running on Alter G. Oh, it doesn't hurt at 10% less body weight.
Yeah.
I'm just going to lose 10% of my body weight, which I did. Sure. Looked great. Had great abs, which everyone told me that I was so fit, leading into 70.3 World Champs then. And I'm like, I'm a total fraud. Like, so yeah, it was just like a bad time. I just felt like a massive fraud and just crumbled. But it was like a massive learning experience and bounced back the end of the year. I think in December, I might have won Bahrain after that.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that's where I stopped Daniela winning the Triple Crown. And And then, 18 was 18. No. So 18 was then my foot injury year.
Yeah, you didn't have that many results in 2018.
Yeah, that's when I broke my navicular.
Okay.
Which is a big one.
So coming off of that period of maybe being, having the internal pressure, having some external pressure, some of the body weight image and image issues that plague a lot of men and women in the sport. And so, like something's going to crumble after that. So you break your foot in 2018. Did you realize at the time that that was likely a cause of maybe too much pressure in 2017, or was that probably just a whole nother thing?
No, I mean, it was just a freak crash. I was descending early, didn't see a crack in the road, and just like lost my hands. Like, when a descent that you're so used to and you're just not paying attention. But yeah, I cracked my foot, raced a bit after that. I did well at Island House, whatever. But I honestly think that probably getting too lean would have contributed to just the bone health.
Sure.
That like made it more easy for my navicular just to break.
Yeah.
So yeah, big learning lesson. But then, faced with, is this it? People say when you have your navicular break that, it's a potentially career-ending injury.
Sure.
So yeah, I went through that. And then came out the other side in 2019 and then had, possibly my best year bar second in 70.3 World. So
sure.
I've definitely, gone through the whole range.
Sure. And what were the main points that you focused on, like through the injury in 2018, preparing for the 2019 season, that you look back on and be like, okay, those were the 2 or 3 things that really helped me get back on track?
Honestly, I did it terribly. Honestly, yeah, no. I struggled, really struggled. I think when you're in it and you have no perspective, it felt like it was like a life sentence being in the boot for however long I was in a cast for, like 4 months, 5 months. And I think because I waited it for it to try and heal first naturally, which was wasting 4-6 weeks. And then the surgeon couldn't schedule me in for like another, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So by the time, and then because it is navicular and it's got a bad blood circulation, that was like another 4 months in a cast. So I was miserable. Like everything that I love got ripped away from me. I mean, I couldn't even drive because it was my driving foot. So I was housebound,
sure.
Swimming with a baggie on my foot.
Oh, brutal.
With a pull buoy. That was the only, and like lost all my fitness, which I was so scared to lose.
Yeah.
But I think more the perspective of like going through it, like, yeah, I totally failed. I did nothing that I could take from that I did well. Like, I think it's, it's okay sometimes to just like, you can look back and be like, yeah, I didn't know what I didn't know at the time. And I just thought this is forever. And yeah. And I think it was kind of a lot of pent up anger and, on the way back, and that then kind of motivated me in 2019.
Yeah.
I was just then on this like crazy high then in 2019. So yeah, it was just, a roller coaster, but I'm just so now grateful for all of those experiences, because I just think I have so much more perspective now going into that, just like, because like now, people reach out and like, I've broken my, navicular or whatever. And the first thing I'm being like, okay, your fitness is gone. Like,
write it off.
Write it off already. Look after, like, do what makes you happy. Because honestly, it'll be a blip in time. But when you're in it, you feel like, it's the worst thing to ever happen to you.
Yeah. How is your mental health during that period where you're on the sidelines or on the couch for 5 months? Because like I've had some injury issues, and like I have that fear myself of, okay, if I have to be stuck on the couch for more than a week, I'm fearful of like, how am I going to get through the day? Because for us, or at least for me, like just going for a swim or going for a jog or going for a bike ride is such a big component of me just feeling normal. Like, were you feeling that during that time? You mentioned like the fear of losing fitness. Obviously, I'm fearful of that too, and I think people out there would also be fearful of having to take time off. But like, what was the day-to-day like?
Yeah, I mean, just day to day, it was rough. Like, I think I am more of an emotional person, which, like, I think is a great thing. Sometimes I can really experience like the highest highs, but I can also experience like the lowest lows. And without sport, which is like kind of a drug that you're used to, it's this like chemical thing that you're used to getting every single day, multiple times a day, a feel good of, just pushing yourself, that then just like suddenly stripped away. That's just like really hard. And I don't think, unless you have experience, you don't know like quite how that's going to affect you. I mean, my relationship at the time struggled, which you don't realize, oh, it's because I'm going through this. You just think whatever I'm feeling is real, which I feel like now I have a better perspective of like my feelings are a bit more like the weather, and it's going to change, it's going to pass. And I don't have to just, believe everything that's going through my head or the emotions that are coming out. Like it's just, it's just very volatile at the time.
Yeah. I say that all the time. Like Jeannie and I talk about that. And I say the only way out is through. Like the only way we get out of this, like nothing's going to change. We're still going to be professional athletes. We're still going to be married. The only way out of this is through whatever we're going through. So I got to tell that to myself. So it feels like, I mean, yeah, you just kind of got to keep going. I want to talk a little bit more about like the post-pandemic return. You said, in 2019, you have this super hot season. You go into the shutdown. You're like, you've had to take some time off for some health reasons. Since that period, I believe you've only had one win.
Yeah. I mean, the last couple of years, I think post-COVID has just been, it's strange. It feels like the shortest period of time, but you look back and you're like, wow, that's actually quite a few years that have passed.
Totally.
And I think it's changed, that we're, before I would race a lot of different 70.3s, I would race regional champs. It would be a lot of these other kind of spread out fields. Whereas now the game's changed a little bit, especially with like PTO, that we're just racing these stacked events. So like on paper, it doesn't look as good. I think I came third in Daytona in 2020. I think so. I can't even remember. My memory's not amazing. Which doesn't sound as good as a win, but it could have been, as good a performance. But so, yeah, you kind of have to have that kind of perspective too, that you're like, I've always been somebody that wants to race the biggest races and the best people, but sometimes that just doesn't sound as good on paper. And especially now with the T100, which, it's like a world championship caliber field at every race. And you're not just doing the little 70.3s that you used to do and just rack another win on the tally board.
100%. Do you feel like you do a pretty good job going into the race of maybe contextualizing a little bit and saying, hey, like, okay, yeah, I'm a world champion. I've won a world title. I want to win another world title or another equally competitive race. Are you able to say, okay, going into a T100 race or a regional championship in 2021 and beyond, a third is amazing, a fifth is amazing, it's good enough? Or is every result that you've gotten since winning a world title not good enough or not acceptable enough?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've never focused on the places, even when I was, racking off wins. So it doesn't feel like I don't measure myself just to the places. It's more of my performance. And then the last few years, I haven't been satisfied with my performance. And I know, it's like, how you swim, what power you're pushing on the bike and what pace you're running. And so like, if I did what I think I can do, then I would be happy if that's, leading me sixth place or whatever. But I haven't been satisfied because in the last couple of years, like I haven't been pushing my performance where that excites me. And that's how I race. It's like very, I'm looking at my power, trying to like every second, I'm like toggling that number, and it's just been, leaving me a bit flat. And so actually going into this year, we had just a really big, I didn't race in December like I normally would, and just had a really long build up, like a base phase. like my threshold increased for the first time forever. And like, you know, my fat max like way increased. And like I did Miami as a whim, only just because it was like a, you know, contractual, get one out the way so I maybe don't have to do this other race in the middle of the season. And I, you know, didn't anticipate that would be my last race of the year. And I had a really good race, third place, like literally off base training. Yeah. Like, I'm like, God, I'm not even started yet. So I was really excited again to race this year and thinking like, I actually am feeling that excitement from like previous years. And I haven't felt that in a really long time. So yeah, it was nice to feel that, but also like, oh God, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah, it takes a little bit of bravery to like change the approach when you've had so much success and say, no, like in order for me to take another step up, I got to change things. But like I was around you in December and it seemed like you were on a really good path and you showed that in March. And I don't think that's necessarily going to change because maybe now you know, hey, like when I make this return, I kind of know the formula for me to get back into that sort of shape. Like I definitely want to talk a little bit about what you have alluded to there. Like this 2024 hasn't, I don't know if it maybe was exactly the game plan that you and Sean had planned. So yeah, walk me through maybe where your head was at in December and then maybe where your head was at in February, March.
Yeah, so it definitely wasn't the plan. And if you have no idea what we're talking about, I am pregnant. I'm like 30 week. I mean, we deal in weeks when you're pregnant. It means nothing when you're not. It's like 3/4 of the way through. But no, it was not the plan at all. As soon as, so we got married in September. I did come off birth control because I was just having hormonal issues, which I've been fighting for quite a few years. And I'm just being like, you know, you're very lucky as a man not having to deal with it. You can just be very straight. But me, I've always been like, I want to, you know, just like keep trying to fight my way through this instead of just like letting my body just be the way it wants to be.
Sure.
So I finally came off birth control but then when the T100, so we weren't planning to get pregnant, and the T100 contracts came out, we were like, we have to be really careful. Like, so I was actually on a natural cycles app for pregnancy prevention, which just bad communication, whatever it was. We ended
so the app wronged you?
No, it was user error. Yeah.
I don't know if we're getting app sponsorship out of this podcast, unfortunately.
Well, I am now using it to track my pregnancy.
Oh, so sweet. So you went back, return user. They're still getting the $2.99 a month out of you.
Yeah, they just flipped the algorithm and now it shows me how the baby's progressing and everything.
Is it that easy to like just toggle between I'm trying to not get pregnant or whoops, I'm pregnant?
Yeah, I'm pregnant. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we found out day before Valentine's Day. I remember it. So middle of February that we got pregnant, and we really just sat there being like, oh shit, what did we do? Like, this was not the plan. I was like, no, this is the T100, you know, this is the year. And I was like, so feeling good of how training was going. So obviously we'd, you know, kind of put it out there. I was going to do Miami, but as a throwaway race. This wasn't going to be my last race of the season. It was just like a contractual appearance. And I thought, wow, okay, I can still race. You know, I'm feeling pretty good. And then it was just like a couple weeks before the race that I just started feeling really tired. So I actually told Paula and Jackie like the day before the race. I didn't tell anyone else because it's super early. You're not meant to tell people like until 12 weeks because it can still just kind of like fall through, you know.
Sure.
And like my boobs were big already. Like I was like, I just don't know how this is gonna go. And Jackie's like, yeah, you know, you'll be jogging at the back, you know, whatever. But yeah, I just managed to have a good race, and it was a lot of emotions because I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to like put this on the sidelines for a little bit. But also really just like, okay, got away with that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, it's one of those things where I think right like now you just have to look at it like with so much positivity, right?
But also like, so when we obviously like, you know, dealt with the initial like, oh God, what did we do? Yeah. Then we were like, because we've wanted, you know, me and Sean have been together for God, how long now? Even though we only got married in September, we've been together for, gosh, so long, been through so much ups
Sure.
and downs and everything. And like, he is my person, and
Yeah.
he's a bit older than me. And like, we've, I know he's going to be a great dad. Like, we've wanted that together, but kind of always scared that like being a professional athlete and a mom can't coexist, like being able to like put a year aside, like we just wouldn't have done it unless it was taken out of our hands, and it was taken out of our hands. So, and then when it really was real, we're just like, okay, this is it. And it's what we've wanted. So, we obviously were over the moon, but like, oh gosh, I can't believe how this is going to change
Sure.
this year. And thinking that I just totally like, blew all the opportunities that came my way with the T100, but then the T100 stepped up with the maternity policy.
Sure.
And it's actually, now I look back on it and think, God, this couldn't be more perfect. That like, we're, baby's coming end of October, and I think I can like be back to a real year next year. And like, I want to be in Kona. I want to like, I'm like more motivated than ever. And I almost feel like from the mentality side, it's like brought me back full circle, whereas like I've got nothing to lose anymore.
Sure.
Whereas like, I feel like because I've been like betting on myself the last few years, and it's been a shitty bet, it's stacked up the pressure. We're like, we've been putting our life on hold for this.
Yeah.
And it is that is just a form of pressure, that you're putting something that you really want aside for something that's just not giving you that, and so now I'm just like, we're going to have it all. And like everything I do from now is going to be a bonus. Like when I was racing at the beginning, like no expectations, just having fun. So I'm like even getting feels like, just saying this, like, but I'm like super excited to be back racing.
That's amazing. It probably gives you like so much context, because we all just, but I can only assume before you have a child, it is a selfish pursuit. You are really wrapped up in just like, how do I get to the next race? How do I get a little bit fitter? Or how do I get more competitive? And I think it takes maybe something that large to like force you to take a step back and look at it with like bird's eye view.
Yeah. And also like, you treat each race like your self-worth is on the line.
Totally, yeah.
Every race. And that's just such a hard way to be. Whereas like before you got sponsors and before you thought everyone cared about your sport, you didn't feel that way. You were just stoked
100%.
to be, wherever you didn't think you would be. So it's like, but it's impossible to keep that feeling throughout your career. I mean, it's not impossible. I'm sure people manage to do it, but it's so hard because everything's pulling you the other way. Your sponsors, even though so well-intentioned, you're yourself just like chasing the money. You're like, this is another value of like me as an athlete. Whereas I think when you have a baby, it's like, okay, I'm something way more important.
Yeah.
And then sport isn't the only measure of me, and it's just going to be like this icing on the cake.
Yeah. How do you anticipate your life to be different when the little one comes along?
So we are very naive
Yeah.
about this. We're just like gonna figure it out.
Sure.
We honestly don't know exactly how it's gonna look. I'm really grateful that Sean's at home with me most of the time. He's out training with me, he coaches. So we are pretty flexible, and, we have, his mom that can come, and we're also open to getting help. People have au pairs. And so just very much like, we're going to see and figure it out, and we believe we can. The beauty of winter, going into winter, that we'll be doing a lot of indoor training. So I think it's going to be manageable. But I have no illusion that it's not going to be hard.
Yeah.
But I think a little struggle is good for you.
I totally agree. Yeah. I think that you need a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Do you anticipate there being like a mom boost post-pregnancy that we've seen maybe with some of these other moms coming back?
See, I don't know if it's, the physical boost is in like a blood volume, because there is a blood volume for a bit of time, which there was supposed to be, early stages of pregnancy before weight just like goes
Sure,
far overtakes. But I think it's more the mental side of it.
Yeah.
Really.
I noticed that quite a lot, just having been around dads just having spent a lot of time with Tim and training with Tim and being alongside him at a lot of races when he was doing really freaking well, and he would always do better when he had another baby, when him and Rennie would have a baby. I'd be like, man, you're just getting more stress, less sleep, more pressure, and you go to the race and do better.
Yeah.
So I think there's just that, like, part of it's just the responsibility of, like, it almost brings you back to the early days, because I felt that too when you're sitting there in 7th and you're going and you're like, hey, that's $1,000 20 seconds up the road. That's a big deal when you're 21. And it's almost kind of the same thing where it's like, hey, another place means a big deal for me, even if it's not going to necessarily pay for diapers or not pay for diapers. But I think you're like trying to provide, and that maybe gives you an extra edge when it comes to like, okay, how hard am I willing to go today, or how much am I willing to push myself?
Yeah, I think definitely and I would love to, like, if they did a study on it or something, like see the male response versus like female response, because I think it's very different. But it's like, steeped in, like what you were saying, it's like the need to provide for a man, whereas like I think for a female it's different. Like so I mean, I just find it fascinating, but I do think there's something that like your brain changes.
Yeah, totally. No, it's very cool. It's cool to observe, and hopefully one day I'll be able to experience it myself. Like, how much in the comeback are you going to be placing the same amount of energy into your return to a high level? You mentioned wanting to get back to Kona. That's obviously going to take a pretty big investment of time and energy versus maybe helping Sean and your guys' passion project and the coaching. Like, is it going to be full gas getting you back? You're not focusing on anything else, or is it going to be a matter of like, you're going to kind of dabble in other stuff too?
No, it's full back. Yeah. That's like, I mean, like Sean really does the passion project stuff, like YouTube, where he's coaching athletes. We have a bit of a training group right now, which is fun. But yeah, that's kind of his, and like, I'm definitely part of it and I love being part of it. But like, yeah, my focus is getting back racing and training, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And obviously looking after a baby, which I will figure out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I guess like one thing you do, obviously, you're going to have to pay attention to, and you probably are paying even more attention to now, is just like all of the relationships that you have with your sponsors. Like, are you going to be putting any increased energy into projects like that? Like, for example, the Zoot, custom line collection, and maybe working with Trek on special projects. Like, is that something that you're doing more of now and you want to continue to do more of? Or is it like, I'm just focusing on performance? Yeah,
I mean, since I've had the brands that I've had, I've always worked closely with them, and it's to whatever extent that they're like willing to let me in. And, I'm just like grateful that, that happens. And like with Zoot, it was, way in the cars way before I got pregnant. And then we like made the suit for racing, and, my collection, which is the Believe collection. And they're like super supportive when I get pregnant. And so it's like, it's more just of a relationship, but I've always been hands-on with that. So that doesn't really change.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because like I always felt like Jeannie and I's partners have always been very personal relationships. And yeah, you always hope that a brand would like, take care of you through thick and thin, whether it's an injury or, something like a pregnancy. So that's good to hear that you're like getting great support from your partners. I have a couple more questions here, and then we'll get you out of here with some rapid fire questions. But I want to know, like, what is one thing that you would tell a young kid who's just getting hooked on triathlon? Maybe they're getting exposed to the T100 or getting exposed to it via Super League, all these new avenues that are out there, the Ironman series. What are you telling maybe a 13-year-old kid who aspires to be a pro?
I mean, 13 is so young. You've just got so much ahead of you. I think it's just like keeping the love of it. Like really, you're doing it because you love it. And like, I think that's even what Passion Project for us is about. Like, I literally love training. Like, I don't have to be training right now, but it's what I do. Like, and I think, and even the way I race best is when I feel like I'm on vacation, I'm having fun with my friends, and like I'm the one like an idiot bopping around in transition, laughing with people before the race start. And that to me is like, I'm having fun out there, and like it's gonna be a good performance if I'm relaxed and having fun. And it saddens me, the people that are just like, they look like they're so over it. They're stressed before a race. It looks like I just can't wait for this to be over. And that's what I would want to protect, the 13-year-olds out there from. It just like keeping, you're doing this because you're just like stoked to do it, and like doing that however way that like, because that's gonna, lead to longevity and like maybe, it's helpful to mentor people for when they do make it, because that's when they're going to be kind of bridge with, the pressures and everything that they ultimately, it's coming from them. It's not coming from those external sources. Just like helping them keep perspective and just like not losing that love, and which is ultimately going to keep you going.
Yeah. And what would you tell maybe, a 20-year-old pro or a 19-year-old who's an age grouper or an amateur kind of like doing ITU who wants to step it up and be a pro, like a real pro, maybe make it in long course, because you have access to some of those guys and girls now through the Passion Project and Sean's group. Like what's maybe one piece of advice you'd give one of them who's, I know one of your guys has his first pro race coming up in September. Like, what are you telling him?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, it's all steps. It's like, you can only better from yourself, you don't compare yourself to everyone else. You're just trying to be a bit better every time, every year. And it's not even like, when people are like, be better every day. I'm like, that's terrible, because you can't. Like, it's slow process, but it's like, it's just and believing in a plan, like having a plan, not trying to just like overextend every single day, every single week, just doing the work, doing it well, having faith, having confidence, and just like, just putting it where it matters, which is in racing, and just like trying to be, and just like letting that be your motivation instead of like the places that because that ultimately takes care of itself.
Sure. One final question here before the rapid fire. What would you want to be remembered for when you do decide to retire? Like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oof, gosh, that's hard. That's hard. I don't know, just racing, like putting it all out there when you race.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, got some 4 rapid fire questions for you. You ready for the rapid fire?
Yeah.
All right.
Hit me.
Number 1, what's your go-to calorie bomb when you're behind after a few hard days of training?
Ooh. Froyo with loads of candy.
Nice. Like sweets or like chocolates?
Sweets.
Oh, sweets. Yeah, I tried to formulate like a Percy Pig question,
Okay.
but I couldn't think of one because I'm not British at all and I don't know anything about Britain. So,
So any Americans out there, Percy Pigs, you can only get them from Marks and Spencer's, and it's a candy, like a gummy, like this part foamy, part gummy, and it's like very intense strawberry flavor, and they're just like the best. So
I spent like 20 minutes trying to formulate a question about that. I was like, I got to mention it in the podcast somewhere because I know she's going to like that, but I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, that's a good answer. Yeah. Who is your favorite training partner of all time? And it can't be Sean.
It's probably not Sean.
There you go. Sorry, Sean.
I mean, your partner isn't usually the person that you're just going to like have the most fun out training with, because you're going to be your worst self to them. Whereas like you'll hold it in a bit better with someone
couldn't agree more.
So yeah, someone who's like a friend but you're not going to let it all out to them.
Who is that person? Do you have one?
I mean, I've just had so many training partners over the years that like, yeah, I mean, the most recent, like Timmy, my friend, Timmy Wislow, he's like, yeah, just being an amazing friend and training buddy. Like it's like social time. So now we go on hikes and catch up, but we'll go for a swim later.
Cool. What is your worst travel day ever?
Ooh. Oh gosh, I'm sure there's been so many. Probably when I was young, because I didn't have much money and I was in a French Grand Prix. And I didn't realize if you don't take the first half of a return, then they can cancel the second half. And so I was in Paris, Charles de Gaulle airport to take my flight home. And it was like, you can't, like your flight's not valid anymore. And I didn't really have enough money to cover the flight. And my mum, it was just my mum and dad, it came out, but it was just a very stressful time because we just didn't have much money. So
yeah, I always ask professional like endurance people, because we all just travel so much, like we've all been everywhere. Yeah. And so you have one nightmare story that you look back and be like, oh, I'm glad I'm either like graduated past that stage of my life where I like don't have the funds to cover a one-way ticket. I've been there. Yeah. All right, last one. On your racing suit, you are the governing body for all of triathlon, all races everywhere in the future. You have to choose sleeves and no legs, or legs and no sleeves? Men and women.
Ooh, that's hard. Because I would just say no sleeves, no legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do wish there would be some uniform rules. Because I do, as a woman, I think it's nice to feel feminine when you're racing. And also, like, the swimsuit thing isn't just like, I want my butt out when I'm racing, because I don't. It just generally feels better on my legs, like to not have wet fabric. Then I don't know, my quads just feel better for it. So I don't know. Everyone says sleeves are better, so I'd probably say no legs and sleeves. But then men.
Ooh, I don't know if you want to see me in no legs.
No. Men different. Men should be legs, no sleeves.
Okay.
Because people want to see the arms. I mean, you got to get some more viewers into triathlon. So
I don't know if the male triathletes are bringing the best arm game to the show, but maybe.
Try it out.
Yeah. All right. Maybe I will. All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for today. Holly, thank you for coming on and being a great guest.
Cool. Yeah, that was fun.
Awesome. Had an absolute pleasure learning more about Holly Lawrence. She's someone who's recently moved to Boulder. You run into her at the pool, this and that, but you don't really get to dive in. And so it was really cool to learn more about her and her story. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you in the next one.